Greetings, Poe fans, and welcome back to Poe Discussions with Carmen and Jeanie. Jeanie, how's it going tonight?
It is it is hot, but it is good. So it
Yes,
all works out. We're
yes,
potastic.
that's right. And hopefully the weather will be even better this weekend.
Exactly.
Well, we have a special guest this evening, and her name is Kris Kosach. And welcome, Kris.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being with us. So, Kris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, let's see. I'm born and raised in California. I was a career radio DJ. That took me all over the United States I've lived in Reno. I'll give you the whole list. How's that?
Okay.
Reno, Omaha, St. Louis, New York City, back to California, then back to Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, and back to Los Angeles. I think that's right. I feel like I'm missing something in there. And
Okay.
then I jumped from radio to television, and I worked for the Travel Channel a couple of times. I've always loved music, but I've always loved the spooky stuff too. And for the Travel Channel, I did two shows, which took me around the country, and I got to see a lot of spooky hot spots like Savannah, New Orleans, those sort of things. And of course, I'm a Poe fanatic, just like you all.
Yeah, that's cool.
Raven Maven. Is that what they call us? Raven Mavens?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a good title. Absolutely. So, did you like in your like radio career, did you get to do any kind of spooky things?
In radio, not so much. I mean, well, no, that's not true.
Okay.
That's not true. Um, I was a music journalist for a while in there between a couple of radio jobs. And I covered the Voodoo Music Festival in New Orleans.
Oh, cool.
And the
Ooh, yeah.
second day we were there, it was wonderful. So it was uh, they lean on the darker stuff, goth and like just darker
Yeah.
music and all that history that's there. And the very next day, we went to Trent Reznor's, the lead singer of Nine Inch Nails,
Hmm.
Woohoo.
and he had at the time his music studio in New Orleans, and we went to cover his music studio. And when we got there, they told me, well, your co-host is complaining that you did all the interviews yesterday and he wants one today. So they literally took my interview away from me with Trent, which was such a bummer.
Yeah.
But
That's awful.
but no, it's got a great ending. They said, well, Trent's not here today. He's not feeling well, so he took the day off. Okay. And
Mhm.
then the next bit of bad, so I wasn't going to get to interview him. I wasn't going to get to meet him. Right. And
Okay.
then the trifecta of bummers was that my producer came out and said, it's really tiny back there in the studio. So between me, the producer, your co-host, and the manager of the studio, there's no room for you to even get a tour. So just
Okay.
sit in the kitchen. So I was relegated to the kitchen, kind of having a bit of a pity party
Yeah.
when lo and behold, Trent Reznor came in and sat down across from me,
Oh,
and
wow.
he was fibbing. He wasn't sick. He just didn't feel like doing an interview. And
Wow.
so he and I had this wonderful conversation. And then he went off to watch a baseball game. And I was left there in his spooky mansion, kind of going, was that a ghost? But no, it was really the rock star. But he has
Yeah.
a fascination with really weird stuff too. So, for example, it was
Okay.
creepy. The front door of his studio he had purchased from an auction. It was the front door from Sharon Tate's house where they had carved pigs into it. He purchased
Oh,
Oh,
that,
wow.
wow.
Oh,
which is
wow.
very
Helter
twisted, but
skelter.
Yeah, that's dark. That's very dark.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
Oh, my
was. But
goodness.
a little too dark for me, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
A little much. A little much.
That would definitely be it. A little too dark, a little too macabre.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it was. But it's a good story.
Yeah, it
yeah.
100% true.
Yeah, that's
Well,
cool. Jeannie, I thought you were gonna say something.
yeah, I was gonna say that during your wonderful radio hopping days.
Mhm.
And you brought in like New Orleans and those areas, and I love Savannah
Yes.
because I have
Ah,
visited Savannah and just the history surrounding Savannah, plus
yes.
the spooky ghost tales and the tours and the stuff that you can take. Did you get to take any of those cool tours when you were in Savannah? And how did it,
Yes.
what were your
Yeah.
reactions?
Um, that's a good question. There's any number of ghost tours you can take in Savannah,
Mhm.
as you know. There's any number of cemetery tours you can take in Savannah. When the sun goes down, it's a much creepier place than it is during the day. During the day, it's just beautiful, right? And
Mhm.
since Sherman didn't burn it down, it's all antebellum, and they'll point that out to you.
Mhm.
Um, I think, let's see, my takeaway from that was my host, my ghost host, my tour guide, to take me around town. This was on camera. This was for Travel Channel, so it's kind of
Okay.
like
Mhm.
TV tour, right? Um,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that guy was a weird. Wow. He took himself very seriously. He had what he called the map of the dead, and it was a map of Savannah and all these places where all these tragic things had happened. But I
Mhm.
remember the story, one of the tragic stories, and it is a real history, it's not just a legend,
Mhm.
is that there was a very poor indentured slave by the name of Alice Riley, I believe was her name.
Yeah.
And she had come to the United States, and she was an indentured servant to a very abusive man and fell in love with someone else. And together they decided to conspire to murder this guy. And they hanged him after the conviction. And then she was pregnant. So they kept her alive until she had the baby. And then they hanged her.
Wow.
And the ghost story is that to this day, there's a woman wandering around the squares crying. And that just breaks my heart as a mother.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God. It's
Yeah.
even though it's a spooky tale, that one, some of them just get under your skin. And that's one
Yes.
of
Yeah,
them.
that
Yeah.
Mhm.
definitely, because it's like if her spirit is there, is she crying looking for her child, you know?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's heart-wrenching. Oh,
It
But
really
so
is. So,
very Savannah and
yes.
so very poetic.
so
And it's so
yes.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I love Charleston
It,
too, but Charleston never had the same ambiance as Savannah.
I
Because like
agree.
you
yeah.
said, when the sun goes down in Savannah, it's like a whole different world. Kind of like with New Orleans. During the
Mm-hmm.
day, there's a whole different vibe of New Orleans, but the moment the sun goes down, you're like stepping into this macabre, this
Yeah.
darkness, this
Yeah.
the wonderful. Now, I don't know how many people have actually ever been to New Orleans, and I would strongly suggest if you've never been to New Orleans, please do go
Yes.
because just the feel of it because it is so historical. Just the
Yeah.
history
Yeah.
is still
There's an
seeping out.
energy. You can
Yeah,
feel this energy, right?
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And that's like with Savannah, the old parts of the areas that just seep into the just the area and the people, and you can still feel it.
Yeah.
So I guess now that you traveled with the Travel Channel and you had a DJ background, what led you into what you're currently doing? Which
Um,
that's what we want to get into the nitty gritty of that too.
Yes.
sure, let's do that. Let's do that. All right. So
Okay.
music is so much fun and it fills my soul. But I've come to realize, and maybe you feel the same way, there is just something about horror and dark content that is not
Mm-hmm.
only beautiful, but rich and steeped in history and unknowns and whispers and hallways, and it's so provocative,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and at the same time it's beautiful, and at the same time it's not like in your face, right? It's much
Yeah.
the type of horror I like is not gore and shock. The kind
Mhm.
of horror I love is what Poe did, which is why I was drawn to him. It's um it, it gets under your skin and it haunts you and it stays with you and you like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. There's just something tragically poetic about it that's really attractive.
Yeah.
And so I have always had an affinity for books and movies and poetry. I'm very proud of this fact. The one and only thing I ever stole in my life was a book of poetry in high school that
Uh-huh.
contained some Poe. And part of that is because when I was a senior, I asked my teacher if I could purchase the book off his shelf. It was my favorite book in high school.
Hmm.
And it was called Beowulf to Beatles. And it had everything from Beowulf all the way up to Bob Dylan and the Beatles. And
Oh,
just,
wow.
right. It was the first time I had ever really realized that lyrics were poetry. And
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
right. And so it was so karmic that I would go into music, but also love this
Yeah.
stuff as well. Um, but anyway, I asked him if I could buy it, and he said no. And then I asked the office, and they said, no, we don't sell books. And I said, well, what happens if I lose it? And they said, you have to pay for it. So I went, okay. So I lost it at home on my shelf, and I
It's a
paid
great
for
There
it.
you go.
story.
So,
And
technically you lost and found it, so you paid for
right.
it. So there you
Yes.
go.
Right,
Yes.
right. And years later, when I told my college prep literary teacher, when I ran
Uh-huh.
into him in the store, I said, I have a confession for you. And I told him that story, and he was so proud of me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like the book thief.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's
Exactly. It was
great. That's
a
great.
noble cause. Noble cause.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
So you have done a lot of research on Poe, I think teenage years, like when he was younger, and
Hmm.
wrote a book and turned it into a podcast,
That's
correct?
right.
Okay, so
That's right.
tell us about that. We want to hear about that.
Okay. Well, it was almost 20 years ago, and I think it was during my travel days, I think. Um, And I was reading a biography about Poe, as one does,
Yes.
and I found myself just enthralled with a second or third chapter that talked about all of his teenage years
Hmm.
and how tragic it was, which I can get into the weeds if you'd like me to, but also how it was so counter to the man that we know as Edgar Allan Poe. So,
Hmm.
for example, he was popular and handsome. He was ladies' man even as a teenager. He was an athlete, a ridiculous athlete who broke
Hmm.
all kinds of records. He he was hilarious and he was way into the hijinks and playing practical jokes on people.
Hmm.
And then of course there's the sadness in his story about his parents dying, his siblings and he being split up.
Yeah.
What we would now call a dysfunctional, abusive foster family, but
Hmm.
at the time they didn't have all those words, right? So it kind
Yeah.
of was this just toxic stew in the
Hmm.
Allen
Hmm.
home. And then the chapter ended and it immediately started going into West Point or something like that. And I remember going, "But wait, wait, but wait." And I got very frustrated because I couldn't find more. So I found myself with a baby at home and a husband who was a journalist and traveling a lot a few years
Yeah.
later. Um, I found myself in DC and digging into places that I wouldn't otherwise be able to dig into, like the Library of Congress and the National Archives, and going down to Richmond and having a friend from a very old family in Richmond, and she kind of like filled me in a little she knew about the Allen family, the Valentine family, and I think she has a couple Valentines in her family.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
anyway, it was really interesting to look in places that you wouldn't expect. And I'm not even sure the Poe Museum, look, they do a phenomenal job,
Yes, they
phenomenal.
do. Yes.
Um, and if anyone has gone down these, dusty hallways that I found myself going down, it's Kris who runs that
Yes.
museum. But
Absolutely.
because he knows so much. But what I found myself doing was going to the National Archives and finding slave records from John Allen's business,
Hmm.
and finding more records about David Poe Sr., who fought in the Revolutionary War,
Hmm.
and this sort of thing, and how the Poe family went into politics, and he really kind of was, and he may or may not have owned a slave, but he never bought a slave. And I found myself going down all these avenues that other people didn't go down.
Yeah.
And one thing I found out is that when he died and Griswold wrote that horrible, scathing obituary about him,
Yes.
in the newspapers, if you dig into all the old newspapers.com, you
Mm-hmm.
start to find that he had friends that came out of the woodwork and wrote notes saying, that's not the guy we knew.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would tell anecdotes and stories, including Robert Stannard, whose mother he was in love with. People
Yes.
came out of the woodwork and said, no, this is who he really was.
Yeah.
And so that's what I became kind of obsessed with, was who he was as a teenager. And
Mhm.
I just fell in love with this kid. He's fascinating and really, really modern. He's kind of like, I think of him as a Victorian or a Regency era Kurt Cobain. I really do. Just misunderstood
Yeah.
and way ahead of his time.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. I always joke he was definitely a time traveler just because of all the oddities that are so coincidental with some things that are, historical and after, he died. And yeah, definitely a misunderstood genius. He's just,
Yeah,
yeah, that's why we love him.
that's why we love him. I also started to dig into, and you're right, I wrote this book. I couldn't sell it because I was told that historical YA doesn't really sell. And so many people have told me, well, self-publish. I'll just give it away. That's why it's become this podcast. And it always
Okay.
becomes kind of popular this time of year.
Hmm.
So I think a link of it might still be in my Instagram, but you've just inspired me. I'll start putting a little bit of stuff on there for
Oh,
Halloween.
great. Yeah.
But but yeah, it was just really fun to do that. But I also I just really I forgot what I was going to say, but I really just think his young story needs to be told, and from different perspectives too.
Hmm.
You know,
Absolutely. Jeannie and I did an episode on his time in England where, going to school as basically like a grammar school. And we
Mhm.
learned a whole lot just digging into that, just separate from his time afterward. And it was fascinating.
Yeah. Did you dig into the part about him going and living with his aunt, his
Yes,
adoptive
a little
aunt,
bit. Yes,
in
yes,
Scotland? Yeah,
yes.
that's
Yeah.
pretty neat. He
Yeah.
probably picked up a lot of spooky stories in Scotland too, and then
I
some.
I would definitely imagine that.
Well,
I
Absolutely.
and the one
imagine.
thing about Poe in his early days, and a lot of people don't get this, and especially the young kids, and Carmen and I both being teachers, I'm retired, but
Mhm.
we taught with, the YA crowd. And some of them, they fall in love with the goth part of like the Raven and
Mhm.
Annabelle Lee and that type of thing. But what they really fall in love with is later when they find out about Poe's own life and his
Yes.
own tragedy that led to where he was. And I think if more kids and more people knew about what he had to go through to get even halfway through his life, more people would be tuned in to his work and
Yeah.
to how he came up with all those wonderful stories and
Mhm.
the horror of it all. And like you said, it's not about gore, it's not about, disembodied anything. It's all
Yeah.
about the psychological, it's the emotional
Yeah.
undercurrent with that macabre. And I
Mhm.
mean, he was a genius at it, and he done it so well. I mean, Telltale Heart, it talks about the gore and stuff, but it doesn't really. It's more
Right.
of a psychological. It's like
It's like a suggestion. It's like a seed.
Yes.
exactly. He's like, he
And
plants the seed, and your brain is what is making it grow. Your imagination
yeah.
is making it. And so I'm so glad to hear that you have a podcast that's dedicated to his early years because I think many people need to hear those. They need to know
Yes.
about what he had to go through.
Thank you. Well, what I will share with you and your audience is that I had outlined 3 different years from like 14 to 15, 15 to 16, 16 to 17. And
Okay.
spoiler alert, it was going to end. I've only written the first one and produced it as a podcast. I
Hmm.
have had people ask me to continue, like, when's the next season coming out? It
Yeah.
was a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of work. So I've kind of like been waiting because if I could get even a tiny little paycheck somehow connected to it, if I could monetize it, I
Hmm.
think I'd go after the next year. But the spoiler alert is that it was going to end the day that John Allen kicks him out and
Mm-hmm.
he's
Yes.
done and he has to get on a boat and go to Boston and make it
Yeah.
alone. And I always saw this as like a series, much like Dickinson was a series.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I would love, love, love to get in front of some producers. I'm in Los Angeles, so it's not
Hmm.
inconceivable, but in this day and age, they want to know that there's an audience for that before they'll take a chance, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I really think there would be because we've done an episode on Mike Flanagan's The Fall of the House of Usher, and a lot of people viewed that episode because we had a group talking about it and such. And I know just from my own students, each year we cover Annabelle Lee, and I always give them a really detailed background of Poe. And they're mesmerized. And I use that word in honor of Poe. And they are there and they ask lots of questions. And I think there's an audience. I know I would enjoy it just as a Poe fanatic myself, but I think the younger generation, they love Poe. I mean, I used an example of I pulled out a sentence for parallel structure the other day, and it was from the Telltale Heart. And we were talking about different authors and things on a different day, thinking about that lesson. And the students like named Poe, like right off the bat. And so he is still very, very prevalent in, our younger kids' lives
right.
in a
What
very
grade do you
positive way.
teach?
Ninth grade.
What,
So 14,
ninth grade. Okay.
14 and 15, which is what you've written.
Feel
So,
free to suggest it.
yes.
That's all
Oh,
I'm saying.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
uh, I think you're going to find this really exciting then, because I'm kind of burying the lead on something that I have been working on.
Okay.
It was go back to my Poe notes when there are reams of them and
Yeah.
do that next year, 15 to 16,
Hmm.
or try something different. And so one day I hatched this plan because, you know, most of his stories, they have an inspiration from something,
Yes.
like supposedly, legend is that the premature burial was, and I wrote this into my story, that he was with his favorite uncle and they were going down the road and they were moving a cemetery from one side of the road to the other.
Hmm.
And he saw a cadaver fall out of a coffin and it freaked him out because it was in a shocked position.
Right.
Now,
Right.
that's the story. Who knows if that's true or not?
Right.
And he was a bit of a liar. We know that he was a little bit of a, am I right?
Exaggerators.
But he would exaggerate and fib about his own age and everything else.
Yes, yes, he certainly did. So who knows? But I like to think some of this stuff is true.
Oh, yeah.
And some stuff truly is, like the Raven. That was a real Raven. That was Dickens' Raven.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
and it did speak, and ravens can talk. It's amazing. Google that. That's
Oh,
amazing on
it
YouTube.
is.
Oh
That's
yeah.
so cool. And then my I called up the sister of my friend, a dad friend in the neighborhood, and I were talking, I think last Halloween, and we were talking about spooky stuff. And he said, "You're a weirdo just like my sister." And I said, "Huh? Who's your sister?" His sister is Mike Flanagan's casting director.
Oh, wow.
And
Woohoo!
yes. And so when I told her I had an idea for a true crime podcast,
Yeah.
she jumped. So Kelly Roy is my partner in crime,
Yeah.
literally.
Uh-huh.
And we're trying to get this new podcast off the ground. And the very first one we're tackling is the true story behind the murder of Marie Roget, which is the
Oh,
murder of
nice.
Mary
That gives
Rogers.
me chills.
So
That's
yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
We'll see if it goes anywhere. I'm pitching
Okay.
it to some people right now,
Okay.
and so the first two or three are Poe, simply because I've got those reams of
Notes.
research.
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that is really
So
cool.
that's exciting. So anyway, that kind of comes full circle because she was the one who cast Fall of the House of Usher.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's really cool. Well, and I was just thinking about too, even adults and teens love the Wednesday series, with the
Yeah.
new one coming or part two coming out, or a few have already come out, but the ones later. And so that to me ties in with that teenage Poe. And so I think it's very relevant.
Thank you, thank you. Now
Definitely.
we got to convince the rest of the world that it's very
Yes.
relevant. But but yeah, no, it's just I don't know what drew you to him so much.
I I think I've always liked the spooky. My father and one of my brothers really kind of got me hooked on, Universal Monsters and just reading mysteries and thrillers, even, as a older elementary school kid. And then when I found Poe, it was just like, okay, I love all this. And I love the Gothic, the Victorian era. And so it has always stuck with me. And I think
Yeah.
you've got a similar kind of tale, I guess.
Well, mine is more, I guess, morbid because I've had this fascination with death since I was 3. Because one of my earliest memories was my grandfather's funeral.
Hmm.
And so it was like I come from I came from a really big family. They've all pretty much kind of all died out now because they were older generation.
Hmm.
And it was like I could mark parts of my life like every year or two by a death of someone in my family. And then when I got to 6th grade, I read Annabelle Lee. And there was just something that resonated with me from that poem of death. But it was not so much the death, but it was more of the sadness, but what could and what the angels were weeping and they were jealous and all this kind of stuff. And then with the raven. And so that kind of hooked me into Poe because I felt a connection with him that he was writing from his own life. And what I was reading was kind of an experience that was tied onto my own life.
Hmm.
And and as I've grown older, I go back and I reread some of Poe's works, and they've changed to me based on my own experiences in life. And so it's not just death anymore, it's just tragedies and it's just life and heartache and it just makes me more and more connected to him even though he's dead. So but that's what drew me to Poe of all those years. So
Through a modern lens, I think all it comes down to is loss and trauma, trying to process loss and trauma, right? So
Yes.
whether
mhm,
that's a person or a job or your home burned down or a love of your life dumped you or
Hmm.
whatever. I mean, death is much more permanent than any of those things,
Yeah.
but
yes,
right. But it's just processing trauma, which thank God we live in this day and age. We have so many tools that they
Yeah.
didn't have any tools back then. None.
No. Oh,
no,
no. Absolutely not. So,
no.
well, then brings us to you. What drew you into Poe?
Um, I've been thinking about that question all day long. I really honestly don't recall the first time I discovered him. I really don't. I imagine it probably would have been middle school, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's when
Mhm.
most kids discover.
Yes.
And it was
Hmm.
probably The Raven. I think
Yeah.
that one's probably most vivid to me. And easy to that or Annabelle Lee, one of those two, because they're both really digestible for an 11-year-old, I think.
Yes.
Um, right. Even though I scratched my head, I'm like, what's a Pallas Athena? What's that? What?
Yeah.
You know, what?
Absolutely.
But I would have to guess it was middle school, and it was probably The Raven. And then, again, teenagers process just hard stuff. Kids suck. Kids can be
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
and I do think if you're bullied, which I was, or you're kind of uh left alone. I'm Gen X, so we were left alone an awful
Yes.
lot.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And I think left to our own devices, what do we have? We have books, we have music,
Mm-hmm.
and that's about it. So I imagine I probably poured myself into a lot of books. I know I poured myself into a lot of music. I was never goth, but I think there's always been like a dark side of me. I was always drawn to like the sadder songs a little bit, maybe
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
songs. So I think it's all kind of knitted its way into the fabric of my life. All of those things, right? Like being bullied, being alone. My sister loved scary stuff, like you talk about the Universal Ghost,
Mm-hmm.
Creature Features. Every Saturday night, she'd be
Yeah.
watching it. And my mother loved true crime, so she'd be like, "I don't know what you kids see in that stuff," and she put her note back into a true crime magazine, or detective magazine. And to your point, though, Ginny, my mom lost both of my parents, lost their parents, their fathers, when they were like 4 and 5, and their
Mhm.
earliest memories were like lost too. And Dad processed it differently than my mom, but Mom always kind of liked that Victorian stuff as well. She
Mm-hmm.
hated calla lilies because she remembered calla lilies on her father's grave, so
Oh,
she hated
wow.
those. That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty vivid image.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's pretty vivid. And she was always, and the other thing is, because all of these people died when I was a little kid, grandparents and, well, not from me, I didn't know my grandparents, but other grandparents, aunts, uncle, a lot of people died. And I would go to the cemetery with her when I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, not at nighttime, it went during the day. And they happened to all be buried in a beautiful cemetery called Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, California.
Mm-hmm.
Stunning. Developed by Olmsted, who did Central Park.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's just that beautiful, like craftsman style, late 1800s. Just,
Mm-hmm.
it's gorgeous. And it's got a Gothic revival style to it, if you want to ever look that up.
Okay.
Um, but I found it to be a really beautiful place. There's
Mhm.
ponds with ducks, and there's people walking, and people walk their dogs and have picnics. I'm not kidding. They have picnics in the cemetery
Mhm.
Yeah.
because it is very much like a beautiful park. Especially during COVID, they had to start locking the gates because people were spending a little too much time.
Oh, wow.
But
Yeah.
but anyway, I think that's how that all comes together with why I love all that stuff. And Poe hits the nail on the coffin
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
all of those things, right?
Yeah.
Loss and
Yes.
cemeteries and beauty and tragedy and all those things. And check, 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 check.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Well,
And he
yeah, go ahead,
also
Kate.
had a touch of the humor. It,
Yes.
some of it might have been dark humor, but the satire and then just the humor behind it, a lot of people miss because they don't understand it and they don't get it. But that was another thing that was just so Poe. It's like I love it, It's that
Right.
dark humor. It's like okay.
Yeah.
I have one, but tell me, Jenny, tell me yours. Like, what's a piece of dark comedy that Poe wrote that just makes you giggle?
Oh, there were so many. Let's see. I guess the one that gets me every time is from the Telltale Heart. It's always about that blue eye and just the thought of being haunted by a blue eye and uh the one when they when the person narrator, because you don't know as a male or a man or a woman, the narrator is disembodying the corpse, all because of Blue Eye. And just the thought of, okay, well, I don't see how a blue eye can lead you to that, but we'll just dig it up and we'll put the heart under the floorboard and then we'll just be haunted by it. So that whole story to me was just dark humor
Yeah.
Okay.
because of a
All
blue
right. How
eye.
about you, Carmen?
So for
How about
me,
you?
there's so many. I mean, one of my favorites of Poe with that dark, it's got a dark, humorous side, is Never Bet the Devil Your Head, but also it's two stories that have one character. It's Psyche Zenobia, and it's How to Write a Blackwood article is where she's introduced, and then it's The Predicament. And she basically gets her head stuck out, like she's up in a building. She sticks her head out this little window, and it's basically where there's a face of the clock, and the arm is coming around, and it cuts her head off, but she's still talking even after it's cut off. And it's just brilliant. It's dark, but there's a lot of humor in it too.
I don't think I know that story.
Oh yeah, read both of them. Read both of them. She's
Okay.
a great character. Like I almost wished he would have written a few more with her because she's just fun.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's great. Um, I think for me, it's the man who was used up, all used up.
that's a good
And
one.
if
Yeah,
you, that's so fun because for your audience who may not know this story, it's just essentially a man who's a veteran of a war. It's kind of the Tin Man from
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
from Wizard of Oz, right?
Hmm.
But
Mhm.
he's completely been, fake arms, fake everything
Yeah,
because it's been replaced because he was, uh, uh, shrapnel or whatever in a war and
yeah,
lost an arm, lost a leg, blah, 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 blah. And so he's telling the story and he's taking each piece apart until the end. There's like nothing left.
yeah.
Nope.
And it's hilarious. And I've read that that's the first sci-fi because he's a robot man.
Oh,
Mhm.
interesting. I
And
hadn't thought
but
about it like that. Yeah.
yeah, that I've heard that before, and I'd
Hmm.
buy it. Sure, short story, Master of the Macabre. Why not make him the
Yeah.
first sci-fi writer in America? Sure.
Hmm. Absolutely. So is that your favorite Poe story, or do you have a poem or story that is like your favorite?
Um, I do always come back to that one.
Yeah,
I do come to. I don't know why. I guess I'm going, my mind's blanking right now, but I do come back to that one because I just think it's hilarious. And
it
once
is.
I get that visual in my head, I can't, I can't unsee the brass cogs
Right.
in front of the fireplace. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
so visual to me. It's
Hmm.
all I see. But sure, I have other favorites. Sure. Annabelle Lee is just beautiful, a woman, tragic, water, waves crashing. It's like it's coming back to you over and over and over. And being from California, the beach at night is kind of a spooky
Oh, yeah.
place.
Hmm.
So that speaks to me as well. Um, the Black Cat. I like the Black Cat a lot.
Yeah.
And well, I guess no, I'm going to say Follow the House of Usher,
Okay.
a
Yeah.
House of Usher,
It's
because
so good too.
the visual of the narrator leaving his ridiculously crazy friend in a burning house with his equally mad sister,
Yeah.
and everything's up. That's another nice visual. I love that he was so visual before any visual medium.
I know.
So visual, right?
Yes.
Uh, it's the strangest thing. So, yeah, I think those are probably because they stick with me. I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
Uh, and the some people have attempted to make music out of his work, but it hasn't really
Mhm.
responded. I haven't responded too well. I think is it? I can't think of it right now. There's a whole album by the
Alan Parsons
doggone it,
Project.
That's it.
Alan.
Thank you, Alan
Yes.
Parsons Project.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, not my cup of tea. Not for
Yeah.
me.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think what's interesting is a lot of interesting musicians also cite Poe as an inspiration for their own music.
Yeah.
Um, I just think there's so many variations of Poe that you can come up with, and they're not,
Absolutely.
the copycats are not going to be for everybody. But
Right.
I
Right.
think we're on the same page that beautiful darkness,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. And and that's one of the reasons why Jeannie and I started the podcast was because we saw all these influences that Poe's had, and they're endless. It's like we could do this podcast forever because we'll never run out of people that have been influenced by Poe. And that's so beautiful.
That's right. Yeah.
It really
Yeah,
is.
that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, it's a shame he didn't have any children. It'd be so
I
neat to
know. I
have
know.
Yeah.
a diaspora somewhere.
Yeah.
And I don't think the rest of his family really appreciated him that much. The
Yeah.
living Poes are like, I know one. And she's like, oh. And I'm like, I know a whole bunch about your ancestor. And she's like, ah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that just breaks your heart.
It
Oh,
Yeah.
does. There's
oh,
Poes all over Baltimore to this day. Tons of them all over Baltimore.
yeah,
And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I love him.
absolutely. We do too. So what do you have coming up next? You said you're working on the true crime podcast.
Yes. We're really hoping that gets picked up because
Oh, I hope so too.
I applaud you for doing it on your own. And I've had 2 or 3 podcasts on my own now,
Hmm.
and it's a lot of work. So to
Yes.
you,
Well, thank you.
so this time, yeah, I really applaud you. And all the research and all of the hard work of editing and uploading and everything. It's a lot. So I've done my share of podcasts for many years now,
Hmm.
running the gamut from music to news to Poe, and now this long version of this book, and then this podcast. The new one, I don't want to do it. The one with Kelly Roy, I don't want to do it independently. And I'm
Hmm.
really looking for a collaborative partner. I don't want to jinx myself, but there is a very large nonprofit radio station / media company here in Los Angeles.
Hmm.
And
Mhm.
if we can get their audience, their facilities, and their studio, that
Hmm.
we will bring the research, the writing, and the talent. And Kelly, I'm not going to ever ask her, but she's already offered to try to bring in some of the actors from some of these shows to talk
Oh,
about it a little bit.
nice. Hmm.
Um, so we'll see, and it won't be just Poe. I mean,
Oh,
there's a
yeah.
gamut of books, right? Like Psycho was written; it
Yeah.
was a book first. It was about Ed Gein, and
Hmm.
same with Silence of the Lambs. That was a book first.
Hmm.
That's based on 2 very real murderers, Ed Gein being one of them, but another one in Mexico,
Hmm.
and so on and so forth. And I think I've written out maybe 20 or 30 episodes.
Hmm.
So hopefully they will see the light of day, but they won't see the light of day unless we can find a partner.
Yeah.
Um, and it's almost Halloween, so I want to get crack-a-lack in here.
Yes.
And then the last thing that I'm hoping to get off the ground October the 1st of this year
Hmm.
is a very short 1-minute podcast that will be on this day, like dark and weird history on this day. I'm playing with the name, The Daily Dread, maybe,
Oh,
or something like that.
yeah.
But it's kind of depressing to produce. And that was inspired in June when, and you'll see it on on my Instagram. I'll tell you
Yeah.
right now, over 1,000 people have liked this this post. But the day that, and you guys might have actually commented on it too, the day of the famous ghost story at Lord Byron's house. It was in
Yes.
mid-June,
Yes.
right, of
Uh-huh.
1819, I think. But that was that was the light bulb that went off over my head, kind of like the full moon over yours.
Yes.
Um, that made me go, hey, people should know what happened on this day. So I've been
Yeah.
working on a whole calendar. I've got all of October,
Okay.
part of November, and we'll see how it goes. It will
Nice.
live or die based on its popularity, but at least 1 month leading up to Halloween is going to be coming out on October the 1st.
That is awesome. And so are you going to put those just out on your Instagram?
I think so. I think
Okay.
I might. When we get off this Zoom, I would love to pick your brain on what you think is working, but I think I'll do Instagram, put it on the normal channels,
Hmm.
and maybe YouTube as well.
Oh,
And it's only
absolutely.
gonna
Yeah.
be 60 seconds, so I'll just bang them out. But
Yeah.
really, I just want to see if I can find more of my people.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
trust me,
absolutely.
there are a lot of us out there. So,
Yeah, we're here, but sometimes we hide, but we're here.
that's true.
You never know when we pop up.
We hide in
Yes,
the shadows.
Exactly.
exactly.
Well, Jeanie, do you have anything else you can think of?
No, just thank you, Kris, for joining us. We
Yes.
appreciate it, and it's been a pleasure, and we hope to hear more from you and look forward to everything you're doing in the future.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you so much for having me on. And I
Yeah.
love talking Poe. If there's anything specific in his teenage days you ever want to chat about, you got my number.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
and I appreciate that very much. And I do take requests for the Daily Dread. So if you've got,
Ooh,
let's just call it that, right? So
okay.
if you have something in particular, like, hey, people need to know about, like today, London Bridge was burning down in
Yep.
1666 right now.
Yes,
So
Yep.
if you think of something, just hit me up, please.
absolutely. So,
Awesome.
Kris, if you'll share, where can everybody find you? We've talked about your Instagram, but we haven't said what it is.
Well, it is a mouthful, is what it is. I don't know why I chose this. I thought it was cute at the time. It's Dark Academia, but it's spelled DARQUE_academia.
Hmm.
And it is a floating page. It goes from pretty things to once in a while politics, and then I'm trying to back off of that, and then it swings back to the source material, which is Poe every now and then, and of course he's got some big dates coming up here soon.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So,
So, but thank you very much, and then and is that the only place you can find me? You can find me. I'm a volunteer at Long Beach Public Radio. That's klbp.org. And you
okay.
can find me through that as well. And that's it.
Okay. Jeanie, we
We
are.
are
Oh,
oh
wow.